The second season of Tales of the TMNT explored each turtle, not by separating them, but by isolating them emotionally, pushing them into one of their core personality traits and exploring it as both a weakness and a strength. Leo, of all the turtles, is the most interested in becoming a hero, or even a superhero. But you know what they say, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Could Leonardo really be ready to take in all the consequences, good and bad, of being a superhero? Join me today as I explore the rise of the Night Ninja and find out. This tale was narrated by Raphael, reading Leo's journal aloud. It all started one day in the subway, when Leo, without really thinking, saved a purple dragon, returned what she stole, and saved a dog's life. When someone called him a superhero and handed him a bag of hot dogs, it made him think about how great it felt to save the day, something he considered they weren't doing often enough. Sure, they saved the city from Superfly, the Mechazoids, the East River 3, the Mutant Battle Arena thingy, and the Staten Island Mutants, but still. The others quickly realized Leo wanted to become a vigilante, which was illegal and would surely get them in trouble, so they passed on the idea. Also, according to Raph, Leo was too much of a Robin to be Batman anyway. But Leo didn't listen. That night, he put on a superhero costume, hit the streets, and stopped the purple dragons from robbing a truck. Footage of this event hit the internet the next day, and despite being in disguise, it was obvious to April and the Turtles that the Night Ninja was Leo. Despite the law violations, everyone was kind of impressed. April was especially hyped, thinking this could be a major story that could finally boost her career. Not that she had an agenda or anything. Suddenly, all the Turtles wanted in on the Night Ninja action. The Turtles were very effective at combating crime, but once they ran out of big cases, only Leo remained interested. However, April still thought there were worthy cases to follow, such as a dog napping ring on the south side. Using Meatball, the neighbor's dog, April went for a walk to bait the dog nappers. They took the bait, unaware that the dog had a tracker on his collar. The Turtles followed the signal to an inconspicuous flower shop, where they found all the kidnapped dogs. But they also found high-tech weapons. Could it be that the dog napping ring was a front for a weapon smuggling operation? The florists came back, forcing the Turtles into hiding. That was when they found out about their boss, a French woman named Lafleur. She sent them to the Four Seasons, a luxury dog hotel. Once they left, April came in to learn about the gang's other operations, smuggling weapons and stealing art and gold. At this point, the situation seemed out of control to Donnie, and he suggested calling the police. But to Leo, there was no time. He asked April to take care of the dogs while they dealt with Lafleur. The Night Ninjas arrived at the Four Seasons and freed the dogs, starting a fight with Lafleur and the Flower Society. Once she started using her very impressive high-tech laser gun, the place went up in flames. After realizing the significant risk they put themselves and the dogs in, Leo realized this wasn't the way to do things and gave up on his Night Ninja persona. However, it wouldn't be that easy to let this go. Lafleur was working with someone named Scratch, who, after seeing a photo of the Night Ninjas, decided it was time to have his revenge. Scratch immediately sent a video to the media, claiming he wanted to expose the hidden threat dogs pose to humanity. He then shared footage of some little dogs turning on their owner after inhaling a strange gas. He warned the city that if they didn't turn over the Night Ninjas to him, more attacks with bigger dogs would happen next time. This brought Leo back on the superhero path, because it meant they had a supervillain going after them, but his brothers urged him to let the police deal with him instead. April, however, couldn't help but investigate this further, and she convinced Leo to return as the Night Ninja to pay the first victim a visit at the hospital. It turned out the guy was allergic to fleas, which was the reason for his hospitalization. He mentioned he saw some strange guys dressed in black in the bushes when the dogs smelled the gas. Having heard this, they rewatched the footage, and they noticed 4 weird beings jumping into a Flower Society van. This confirmed April's suspicions that the 2 events were related. After following LaFleur, Leo had to save 3 dogs from another gas attack, and that was when he had to fight one of the Fleesome 4, Boomer, who eventually escaped. Irritated, Scratch made another video for the Night Ninjas, this time with 3 possible locations for his next attack. All the turtles returned to the action in their superhero suits, splitting to cover all the locations. But of course, this was simply a distraction to keep them away from the actual target, a dog show. After borrowing a bike, April and Leo arrived on time, located the big stink pod and the fleas. They were about to weaponize all the dogs on the show. Unfortunately, the rest of the turtles were stuck in traffic.
Just honk!
Only an idiot honks in a... What? Oh, come on!
Come on!
Leo faced the Fleesome 4, Ajax, Dusty, Boomer, and Frankie. But after Ajax joined Scratch on a different mission, Leo fought against the other 3. The fleas had their own interest in the mission. They were promised they could eat the dogs after the attack was over. The rest of the turtles arrived just in time to give Leo a hand, and April was able to disconnect the stink pod from its power source. Together, they prevented a tragedy. But it turned out that all of this was a distraction as well. Scratch wasn't going after the dogs. He wanted the turtles out of the lair, so he could get his revenge on Splinter. Confused? Keep watching. Unfortunately for Scratch, Splinter wasn't home. He and Scumbug had been fighting a lot recently, so he went out to buy her some flowers. After realizing Scumbug was Splinter's girlfriend, Scratch tried to capture her, but then they heard the turtles arrive, so Scratch and Ajax ended up hiding inside Donatello's tent with Scumbug. To Leo, it looked like the typical superhero story was developing right in front of his eyes. Splinter was about to become his Uncle Ben, or Thomas and Martha Wayne. Scratch came out of the tent to attack them, and he threatened to kill Scumbug unless they collaborated. It became apparent then that Scratch already knew the turtles, Splinter, and the location of their home. Not only that, he also made it sound like they already knew him. But this didn't ring any bells for the turtles. Scratch told them to meet him at the highest skyscraper to save her. What the turtles didn't know was that this story started 15 years ago, back when Scratch was an abandoned cat and was trying to kill Splinter. He tried a few times without success until he cornered him in the sewers. Desperate, Splinter scratched his right eye, scaring him away. It was right after this that Splinter found the turtles walking on the ooze. He dragged the turtles away from that place, but he left a trail of ooze that was easy for Scratch to follow. However, the situation was clearly out of control for Scratch once he saw Splinter and the turtles mutating. Amidst the horror, Scratch came into contact with the ooze, which mutated him, along with his 4 fleas. 1 year later, Scratch returned to take his revenge on Splinter, but the turtle babies wanted to violently play with the cat, making it impossible for him to accomplish his goal. He tried to come back several times, but the turtles would playfully defend their home, unaware of the gravity of the situation. To them, Scratch was just another playmate. But the turtles were too young to remember any of this. Nevertheless, Scratch was bent on starting his revenge against Splinter, the turtles, and the pet owners who cast him out. He then blew up the structure of the giant antenna on top of the Metro Tower, an antenna to which Scumbug was tied. Trying to prevent the detonation of the big stink pods, the other turtles fought the fleas, while Leo pursued Scratch. April contributed in her own way, by accidentally knocking LaFleur out. Scratch confronted Leo for being so naive about thinking that he could be a hero without any of the consequences. He also couldn't comprehend how Splinter could have never thought he would come back to take his revenge. Leo tried reasoning with Scratch. All of this started because he was a school hall monitor who wanted to become a superhero, but when he tried it, he realized it wasn't what he expected. He theorized that getting his revenge would also not be enough for Scratch. To Scratch, all that was senseless, and it was thanks to some timely help from April, now using LaFleur's laser gun, that Scratch lost his balance. While Leo tried to help him, Scratch lost his grip and fell to the streets. Of course, he landed on his feet, but the fleas were hungry, and after not getting what they were promised, they decided to go after him. According to Leo's journal, the turtles saved Scumbug and the city that night. And then Leo found out that Raph had been reading his journal. This tale was written by Ellie Guzman, Rebecca Hubler, Eliza Berger, and Talia Berger. This story introduced Scratch, voiced by Fred Armisen, LaFleur, voiced by Shelby Young, and the Fleesome Four, voiced by Kimberly Brooks, Eric Bauza, Keston John, and Alex Princess. As a take on superhero stories, the team seemed heavily inspired by Marvel and DC, especially with LaFleur and her Flower Society, who looked like they came straight out of a Batman story. As with other tales, it's unclear whether the story happened. I think that by this point, there's enough continuity between stories to assume that they all happened. Perhaps some details were exaggerated, but at least within the show, they are all true. There are also some flashbacks from the villain's point of view, specifically Scratch's, which brings me to the next question. Why did they give the Scratch name to Old Hob? While the character was introduced as a criminal, his revenge story is very similar to Old Hob's in the IDW continuity. In fact, Old Hob is already a criminal mastermind in the Saturday Morning Adventures. So why not make the character Old Hob? I don't know. Perhaps because of the team's love for the 1988 toy line, or maybe because Scratch was easier to market than Old Hob. And no, as I already covered in another video, Old Hob isn't an adaptation of Scratch. Continuing the season's themes, this story explores Leonardo's passion taken to extremes, becoming a superhero. And while his brothers actually found it really cool, Leo wasn't ready for the consequences of being a vigilante. And while his brothers went along with it, they told him from day one what he should have already realized. They were already heroes. They didn't need to go all Batman-y to save the day. Interestingly, Scratch is trapped on the flip side of the equation as well, thinking of everyone who wronged him as enemies instead of starting over. Perhaps, like Leo, he could find out the real hero was inside of him. While the change from Old Hob to Scratch is a little confusing, I really enjoyed the flashbacks in this story. And while I found the plot a bit overcomplicated, I loved the Night Ninjas' design, and I can't wait to see them in action figure form. What are your thoughts on this story? Why do you think they merged Old Hob and Scratch this way? Wouldn't the Turtles be considered vigilantes anyway? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the sewers.